Hey friends. So I'm kind of running an experiment with this post because I had a had an experience early this morning, and then had a real decent day, but a long day, and it kind of dragged along, especially at the end, to the point where I just felt kind of exhausted by it. But I had an experience right at the start of the day, and the day, FYI, started early because my daughter woke up having thrown up in her bed around 5 a.m. So, that that set things moving in a certain kind of direction. Certainly, as far as um, what it appeared the rest of the day might look like. But my point is actually something kind of separate from all of that. My point is, I got up at some point. I stayed in bed actually quite a while with my daughter because she just needed somebody to settle her. I eventually got up and did my yoga practice. And as I was doing my yoga practice, I felt a freedom in my neck and upper back. It was almost like looking up had just gotten easier. And there was an attendant sense of expansiveness that came with it. There's a sense of kind of ease and openness, lightness. So, and it was enough that I noticed it. That physical sensation was enough that it provoked provoked a recognition in me, and so I kind of clocked it, did my practice. At that point, I was doing my practice actually quite late in the morning. Usually I do it early, but I did it quite late because I was waiting I had essentially waited for my daughter to sleep as long as she could. And then I plunged into the rest of my day. I had a lesson and a meeting and had some extracurriculars with Annalise. So just had kind of a full day and then a very long evening because for whatever reason, after being homesick for 2 days from school, my Annalise was not in a mood to go to sleep. She was in a revved up talking mood. So then I got to manage that and sort of finally sputtered out of that into cleaning the kitchen and putting the house together. And so, in other words, I started from a place of real kind of openness and light. And then the day kind of took me, it's not that it was a bad day. I just kind of, my energy just kind of wore down. I watched as my energy wore down. And whenever that happens, I have to ask, how? Why? Because many, many, many things require effort, attention, focus, investment, endurance, but they don't result in a sense of wearing down. They result in a sense of uplift, in a sense of either accomplishment or just simply a feeling of having put my energy to use well. So when I don't have that feeling, it's like I have to look at what I actually did. Like, what did I do with my time that allowed my energy level to kind of little by little wear down, little by little wear down. And almost always, it comes down to a kind of negative thinking. And negative thinking, easiest way for me to sum it up for myself is it's imagining that something is wrong, that someone is to blame, that things should be different, that I know better or somebody else should know better, and that in some way the world should look different than it does. And man, when you're there, it's gonna wear you down. It's gonna take its toll. And it doesn't matter at that point with that outlook, it doesn't matter even if we have positive experiences, even if we have really, I mean, the inspiring and truly sort of awakening experiences aren't really available to us when we're coming from that place. And again, I'm sort of like saying this out loud and trying to kind of track what, like follow the breadcrumbs back to how I got here at the end of a long day. Now, obviously, there's a sense in which it's also kind of like, okay, well, give yourself a little bit of a break. It's been a long day. I've spent 2 nights in my daughter's bed because she's been sick. So wearing down, it's allowed. However, I'm actually kind of a firm believer that it doesn't have to be that way. The only reason those things wear us down is because we think something should be different. We think something ought to be happening differently, ought to be going differently. And in this case, I'm not really even talking about sort of being the nighttime reference point for my daughter. That's the, in some ways, that was the thing that least made me think something's wrong. But I think it is really significant to observe that perspective shift and to just take a note and be like, okay, well, if that's what I did, like if this is where I ended up, how did I get there? If that's what I did, then how could I go about not doing that? How could I go about changing the way I am approaching things so that they don't wear me down? Sadhguru talks about sleeping 2.5 hours a night for most of his life until he was like in his 60s. And he says, the reason is I don't allow the activities of my day to fill me with tension. The reason we need sleep is to unwind the tension that has accumulated in our system over the course of our days and weeks and months and years. If we don't allow tension to accumulate, we need a lot less sleep. And now listen, in my estimation, he's potentially one of the most realized beings on the planet right now. So he kind of knows how to live in such a way that tension just doesn't accumulate. There's a fair amount of skill and wisdom there. And at the same time, that's possible. I believe that's totally possible. So let me not dismiss that as a standard. Let me just say, let me actually try to identify what I'm doing in reference to that. If I'm not getting a result that is as good as that, instead of acting as though, well, he's in another category or he's in another, that's, he's got like a kind of magic, he's like many, many lifetimes ahead of me in spiritual evolution. So, maybe it doesn't apply to me. Well, why not? How many lives do I actually have to live right now? What is the standard? What's the highest standard that I'm capable of witnessing? And if I'm capable of witnessing it, what reason would I choose? For what reason would I choose not to meet it? Not to try to meet it? I can't think of one, other than laziness or a kind of distractedness, which is another kind of like sloppiness of thinking. Like it's like letting what I know is true not be as important as things that are more easily graspable, more easily attainable, more easily kind of like easier to reach out and grab. But that's not how I want to live. Why would I want to live like that? So, I mean, in some ways, I'm just kind of like pep talking myself because I noticed my energy level sort of towards the end of the day, and I thought, okay, interesting. What's going on here? Why? Why am I here? And I think being sort of taking kind of a sober look at that can be really helpful. Even just doing this post, like I said, I'm kind of running an experiment by noticing my trajectory over the course of the day, identifying a starting point, which was a real space of lightness and a kind of event of energizedness. So let me look at how I got on this path and see what other paths are available. That's it. Try again tomorrow. I think that's how we go. I think that's how we get to go. So, but now I definitely need some sleep to unwind all this tension I've accumulated. That's what I got tonight, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great day. Hope to see you again soon.